Breaking news on Capitol Hill, where, as you can see, Congressman Jim Jordan is holding a news conference. Let's dip in.
We say, great, we enjoy history. Let's learn about these amazing two Americans. And so we go there, and you paid the lady at the door $5 from the Historical Society. And you go on this tour and you learn all these amazing things about the Wright brothers. You learn about the bicycle shop and the other things, the gadgets and gizmos they tinkered with and built. Fascinating tour. Last stop on the tour is Orville Wright's bedroom. And they tell you a few more things about this particular Wright brother. And then they close the tour out by showing you two pictures. First picture they hold up, that very first flight, 1903, in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, in this thing they called a plane. And you first thought you'd see that and you think, how did that thing get off the ground? And the truth is it barely did. It flew like 100 feet, got a few feet off the ground. And you're thinking about that, and you sort of remember that picture from 8th grade, 9th grade, whenever they teach you that in school. And I thought, well, that's amazing. They put that picture down, and then they hold up a second picture. 44 years later, 1947, Chuck Yeager breaking the sound barrier in a jet. And I was like, wow, that I didn't know. That's amazing. In 44 years, we go from two guys flying 100 feet to another American breaking the sound barrier in a jet. And literally, that was the end of the tour. They put that picture down, and Polly and I start walking out. And as we're walking out that door, it hit me. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Why did they stop there? I represent Wapakoneta, Ohio, Auglaize County, Ohio, hometown of Neil Armstrong, who 22 years after Chuck Yeager breaks the sound barrier, steps on the moon. Stop and think about it. In 66 years, one lifetime, we went from two guys flying 100 feet to putting a man on the moon. It is a great country, the greatest country in my judgment, made up of great people. And right now, those people, I think, are starting to doubt and wonder about their government and about where our nation is headed. They see an open border. They see crime in the streets. They know what it costs to put gas in their car. They know what it costs to put food on the table. They see a war in Israel, our strongest ally, Israel, and what's happening there, and the help that Israel needs. And they see a government that's been weaponized against we, the people. The very government that's supposed to serve us has been turned on the taxpayers who pay for it. I think the American people are thirsty for change. I think they are hungry for leadership. And frankly, they know that the White House can't provide it. They know the Senate won't lead. And they are looking for House Republicans to step up and lead and make change on these important issues. We got important work to do. Important work to do. We need to help Israel. We need to get the appropriations process moving so that the key elements of our government are funded and funded in the right way, particularly our military. We need to get back to our committee work. And frankly, we need to continue the oversight work that I think is so darn important. In short, we need to get to work for the American people. We need to do what we said we were going to do. We need to do what we told them we were going to do when they elected us and put us in office. And frankly, we can't do that if the House isn't open. And if we can't open the House until we get a speaker. My favorite scripture verse is 2 Timothy 4:7. Paul's the old guy giving advice to the young guy, Timothy. And he says, fight the good fight, finish the course, keep the faith. And I tell folks, I love that verse because of the action in it. Because of the word. Americans aren't timid folks. They're people of action. And the words in that verse, fight, finish, keep, I think fit the American spirit. Americans expect their government to fight for them. They expect us to finish our work. And they expect us to keep faith with the principles and values that made us the greatest nation ever. Made us the nation that could go from the Wright brothers to Neil Armstrong. That's what we have to keep in mind. And that's the kind of attitude I think we got to have. The quickest way to get all this working is to get a speaker elected. That's what I hope we can do today. I'll take your questions.
Good morning. So lay out your path. Are you just going to call roll call vote after roll call vote today and tomorrow and into the weekend and try to wear your opponents down? Because it didn't seem like you made any progress yesterday.
Well, you all said that we were going to lose between the first vote and the second vote. You all said we were going to lose 10 to 15 votes. We stayed the same. We picked up a few. We lost a few. I think the ones we lost can come back. So, look, there's been multiple rounds of votes for Speaker before. We all know that. I just know that we need to get a Speaker as soon as possible so we can get to work for the American people.
Thank you, Congressman. So just to be clear, do you plan to grind this out this weekend if you don't get the votes today? And then secondly, President Biden, as we heard last night, is sending a $100 billion foreign aid package here to Congress. Is that something that
You're making the case for why we need to get the House open so we can evaluate the package. We can't do that, can't vote on that, can't pass anything in that until we get the House open. So I got to see the package, but we certainly need to help Israel. But I got to see the package. But again, we can't do that if the House isn't open. All the more reason why we need to get the House open as soon as possible.
Mr. Jordan, what do you say to the people of Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, that you're not able to provide aid to Israel because the House is so locked up?
Again, I think you're making my case. I got 200 votes, the Speaker designee from my colleagues. The sooner we can get this accomplished, the better for the American people who expect us to work for them and for our friends and allies like the great state of Israel.
In your conversation with members yesterday, were you able to get any of the ones who didn't support you previously to pledge to you that they would switch their votes for you?
We had a good conversation, and we'll continue to do that. But as I point out, the fastest way to get to work for the American people is to elect a Speaker so the House can be open and we can get things done. I'll take a couple more.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Congressman Ken Buck has said that among his doubts are the 2020 election and your view on that. So I'm going to ask you two related questions. One, what was your intent when you emailed a memo to the Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, suggesting that Vice President Pence that he should forego any unconstitutional votes? And do you believe the 2020 election is stolen?
I think there were all kinds of problems with the 2020 election. I've been clear about that. My intention in forwarding the email was an argument made by former Inspector General for Donald Rumsfeld, accomplished lawyer who laid out an argument from the Federalist Papers. I forwarded it on to them. That was all it was.
Can you walk through what is your plan this weekend? If you pick up any votes on the third ballot or if you lose votes on the third ballot?
Our plan this weekend is to get a Speaker elected to the House of Representatives as soon as possible so we can help the American people. Last one.
What is your message for the people of Israel about
wasting
everyone's time when you clearly don't have the votes to be Speaker?
We stand with Israel. I've been there 5 times. Amazing people, amazing country, and we should do everything we can to help them. The quickest way to do that is to elect a Speaker. Thank you all very much.
So we've been listening to Congressman Jim Jordan address reporters amid the ongoing, I guess, chaos when it comes to the House and trying to pick a Speaker. There will be another vote later on this morning. He says he's not removing his name from the list. He's the only person vying for the job. But the last 2 votes, he was not able to get enough votes in order to gain the gavel. In fact, he lost some support during the last vote, some support compared to what he had during the first vote. So whether or not there'll be a different outcome later on today kind of remains up in the air. Sort of interesting as to why he held this press briefing and who the real audience was for this. He's been having a lot of closed-door meetings over the past few days with other representatives within the caucus, trying to influence them and sort of win them over. But his essential message here was we can't keep holding up the business of the House because there's a lot of weighty things at stake. And he mentioned additional aid for Israel, also aid for Ukraine. But let's not forget, there's another government shutdown coming in a few weeks by sort of mid to late November. They managed to sort of kick the ball down the road. Well, we're walking down the road at a rapid click. And so far, it's been a couple of weeks and nothing is getting done because the House cannot do anything without a Speaker. What you didn't hear from him, though, is here's why I'm the man for the job. Here's why I can bring together the various factions within my caucus. Here's how I can work with Democrats in order to pass legislation that will have impact within the country. So I'm sort of curious as to whether he was talking to the American people with this press briefing or if he was talking to members of his own caucus. with this briefing. You know, he comes with some baggage, Jim Jordan. He had been very vocal in terms of questioning the outcome of the 2020 election, or at least calling for investigations into the outcome of the 2020 election. Going a little further back during his time as a wrestling coach at Ohio State, there was a little bit of a controversy there. One of the doctors there was accused of sexually abusing some of the wrestlers on the team. There are allegations that Jim Jordan knew about this abuse and didn't do anything about it. He denies ever knowing that there was abuse happening under his watch. And of course, there's a question of the legislation that he's passed in the period of time that he's been in the House. And it's nothing. He really hasn't passed anything while he's been there. That being said, obviously, he's been elected over and over again, so the people that he represents in Ohio seem to like the job that he's doing. We're hoping to get Nicole Killian. She was in the room listening, and you might have heard Nicole ask a quick question. But when asked about what his plan was moving forward in order to win votes over to his side, didn't really have much of an answer. He pivoted to his main talking point, which is that we've got to get the House up and running and get back down to business, the business that the American people elected them to do. And he's right. He's right. You got to wonder just how frustrated voters are as they sit and watch everything stall on Capitol Hill. So we're going to continue to follow the developments on Capitol Hill for you throughout the day. The expectation is that they'll be gaveling in closer to sort of 10 o'clock. Then there'll be a bit of a roll call. Do we have Nicole at this point? Just you guys let me know when Nicole's supposed to be joining us on the phone. But really sort of the real voting is not expected to be happening until a little bit after 11 or so. And if you watched these votes before, if you saw when Kevin McCarthy went through his rounds and rounds of votes, you know, they go by alphabetical order, and you can get a sense of how things are going. He can't afford to lose many votes. I think it's about 4 votes maximum. And if he loses 4 votes, it really doesn't matter what how the rest of the voting goes. He's not going to get the speakership. The expectation is, of course, that Democrats are going to probably vote for Hakeem Jeffries, as they have been doing. When, you know, the very first question was to him, you know, what's your strategy here? Are you just going to keep calling, you know, roll call after roll call? We're just going to keep doing this over and over again. And he basically said, look, this is only the 3rd vote. We know that maybe you have to go through many, many rounds before you can get a speakership, alluding to Kevin McCarthy's situation, where he went 15 rounds before he was able to garner enough votes to gain the position. But, you know, to do that, there were a number of concessions. He had to make deals with holdouts. And one of the deals that he made was to allow for a single member to kickstart the process to remove a speaker from their seat. And that poison pill, if you will, resulted in the undoing of Kevin McCarthy as speaker. Matt Gaetz was the one to put that forward and start the process, and very quickly things unraveled and Kevin McCarthy was out, and the Republicans have been going back and forth ever since, trying to find a replacement. Initially, it seemed like Steve Scalise would have been the best person, but he could not get enough votes, and he's bowed out of the competition. The last man standing right now is Jim Jordan. So we're going to have continuing coverage on all of this from Washington throughout the day. Stay with us for updates. We're going to take a bit of a break.
Well, let me start with this.
This really happened.
Have you told the government?
Did any of that make sense?
What's your response?
You want me to just
What's
keep
wrong
going?
with that argument?
What have you
Do
learned?
you know why?
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 It's time for 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.